Hello and welcome to Life Up. This another video I'm bringing to you. I think about 3 days. Yeah, I think that was Friday. 3 days ago, I made a video on the changes that Canada have made on their immigration or the plan for the next 2 years. But unfortunately, um, the audio was not coming. I did not figure out why. So I have to delete that video. I'm trying it again. I still don't know how it's going to work out because I want to get a video from CTV News, like the direct message that the minister gave. So I hope this time it comes perfectly. If it doesn't, well, I'll try another way. So there has been not that much because there is something that they do every year. They have a plan, but let's listen to the president or the prime premier of Canada and then the immigration minister what they have to say. So as I always say, I give you this information. So what I see, what I hear is what I give you. So now let's listen to the premier.
In the future.
Immigration plan. Before he does,
Our immigration system has always been responsible and it has always been flexible. And so we are acting today. Because in the tumultuous times as we emerged from the pandemic, between addressing labor needs and maintaining population growth, we didn't get the balance quite right. With the plan we're announcing today, along with previously announced measures, we're making our immigration system work better. Les mesures qu'on a déjà mises en place.
The measures that we have already put in place are bearing fruit. The new immigration plan will make a significant difference.
We need others to step up and do their part too. Far too many corporations have chosen to abuse our temporary measures, exploiting foreign workers while refusing to hire Canadians for a fair wage. All while, under the watch of provinces, some colleges and universities are bringing in more international students than communities can accommodate, treating them as an expendable means to line their own pockets. That's unacceptable, and it needs to change. Businesses should no longer rely on cheap foreign labor. My message to them is that there is no better time to hire and invest in Canadian workers. Our international student cap is dealing with exploitative colleges and universities, but all institutions need to take it upon themselves to be more responsible. And every step of the way, we need provinces and territories to work closely with us, too. Toutes les provinces et territoires vont devoir faire leur part.
All provinces and territories will have to do their part. This includes, of course, Quebec. The measures announced today will continue
Yeah, the audio is still not coming. I just figure it out. The audio is not coming. I don't know why that is actually happening. So maybe the audio is still not coming. I'll try to figure it out soon. I don't know why. I don't know. So yeah, as I'm figuring it out to know why that is happening. You know, if you're on Life App or if you're part of the Life App family, what we do is we share information. We share information on moving abroad any way possible. So if you see any information happening, or if you see anything that is of importance for you, we share it to you so that you also become part of those who want to move abroad or your plan to move abroad. You know what to do. So we or research, or we read about what is happening, the current trend, the possible ways available, then if you meet the requirement, all that you need to do is to apply for. If you meet the requirement, all you need to do is apply for it. Apply for it. So I'm going to try again to share this, but I actually don't know why. Okay, so let me try it this way. Then I hope, yeah, that way is going to work. I hope, yeah, that way is going to work. Yeah, if it doesn't, I
Before he
don't know
does,
why. Is this same?
I want to say a few things. Canadians are justifiably
Before he does, I want to say a few things.
proud of our immigration system.
Yes.
It has made our economy the envy of the world. It's how we've built strong, diverse communities. It's how we've demonstrated the differences can and must be a source of strength, not a source of weakness for communities and society. Immigration is vital to our future. And as a federal government, we have to make sure that that pride, that faith in immigration is not undermined. We've been through a hard time these past few years. COVID stopped everything. When we started to emerge from it, workers were in short supply, things we needed weren't going to market, and prices started going up. So we acted. We made sure that our businesses had workers. Our economy got moving again. We actually experienced the fastest jobs recovery after the pandemic in the G7. Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians.
Adjustments
for
to
right
stabilize
now.
the immigration.
Today, we're announcing that we will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years. Aujourd'hui, on annonce qu'on réduira le
Today,
nombre
we're announcing
d'immigrants
that we
qu'on
will be
accueille.
reducing the number of immigrants we take in the next 3 years, and this will bring a pause to population growth in the next 2 years.
This builds on our previously announced measures to cap international student permits and reform the temporary foreign worker program, all of which we are implementing with a single aim: stabilize our population growth to give all levels of government time to catch up. Time to make the necessary investments in healthcare, in housing, in social services to accommodate more people in the future. Our immigration system has always been responsible, and it has always been flexible. And so we are acting today. Because in the tumultuous times as we emerged from the pandemic, between addressing labor needs and maintaining population growth, we didn't get the balance quite right. With the plan we're announcing today, along with previously announced measures, we're making our immigration system work better. Les mesures qu'on a déjà mises en place
The measures
font
that we
effet.
have already put in place are bearing fruit. The new immigration plan will make a significant
We
difference.
need others to step up and do their part too. Far too many corporations have chosen to abuse our temporary measures, exploiting foreign workers while refusing to hire Canadians for a fair wage. All while, under the watch of provinces, some colleges and universities are bringing in more international students than communities can accommodate, treating them as an expendable means to line their own pockets. That's unacceptable, and it needs to change. Businesses should no longer rely on cheap foreign labor. My message to them is that there is no better time to hire and invest in Canadian workers. Our international student cap is dealing with exploitative colleges and universities, but all institutions need to take it upon themselves to be more responsible. And every step of the way, we need provinces and territories to work closely with us, too. Toutes les provinces et territoires vont devoir faire leur part.
All provinces and territories will have to do their part. This includes, of course, Quebec. The measures announced today will continue to reduce temporary immigration in Quebec. As you know, the Quebec government has its own permanent immigration targets, and it selects the majority of its temporary immigrants. They have the responsibility to act over what they control to contribute to our common goals of reducing temporary immigration and protecting French. Furthermore, with today's plan, we're also contributing to the vitality of French across Canada by increasing our francophone immigration levels outside Quebec.
Is essential for Canada's future, but it must be controlled and it must be sustainable. With today's annual immigration plan, that is precisely what we're doing. Thank you all for being here this morning. Merci. Je passe maintenant la parole au ministre.
I'll pass the floor to Minister Miller.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier Ministre. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Glad to be here with you in Ottawa on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. I want to develop a little on what the Prime Minister just said. Indeed, immigration is indispensable, has been indispensable to the creation and the identity of this country, indispensable to its future. As mentioned in our recent history, it was key to increasing our gross domestic product, net entrance into the workforce, particularly coming out of COVID. Even going into COVID, we had labor shortages, provinces clamoring for immigration measures to bring in more people, and we acted swiftly. Thanks to that, as the IMF has noted, we prevented a recession, and I think that's important to realize when we look at some of the measures today to stabilize the immigration system.
What is clear, as the Prime Minister said, is that we are a country that needs immigration, given the reality of today's population. When I was young, when I was born, the ratio of people who were working versus retired was near 7, but now we need to freeze these levels. In this context, controlled and well-managed immigration is necessary by the federal government. We are also aware of the pressures that this places on provinces and civil society. We're aware of the challenges emphasized by the economists. But we know that immigration is important and it needs to be done in a reasoned manner. But there are challenges when it comes to affordability, our infrastructure, whether that's healthcare or schools. It's clear that we need an immigration system that is tied to needs and capacity of the provinces and the government's capacity to react to these changes.
Permanent immigration targets. This plan is probably the first of its kind insofar as it integrates and responds to a lot of criticisms that we've received in the past. This plan that we table as a statutory matter on November 1st only talks about permanent residency. This plan this year gives a better snapshot for people to look at total population growth and the growth of temporary residents, as well as the measures that we're putting into place to reduce those populations over the next few years. When it comes to Canada's permanent immigration targets and aligning them to our economic needs, I'm here to announce and confirm that the current plan reduces next year's projections from 500,000 permanent residents to 395,000, a net reduction of 105,000 permanent residents immediately in 2025. After that, in 2026, a progression down to 380 to stabilize the numbers at 365 in 2027. The lower permanent resident targets, as well as the temporary resident targets that I will speak to in some length in the next few minutes, will have and are expected to impact the housing supply gap by about 670,000 units by the end of 2027. That means that we will not have to build an additional 670,000 housing units by that time. This is significant. Again, some structural aspects to this plan as well is the need to focus on people that are already here. It means that according and consistent with our plan, over 40% of permanent residents will come from the temporary residents that are already in Canada. These people are a young labour pool, they're skilled, they're here, they've begun their process of integration, and it doesn't place the additional demands on the housing, healthcare, and social services that we see with someone that comes directly from another country. It makes sense. We have a large pool. There are ways to integrate that highly talented pool into the permanent residency population. Adjustments will be made to our economic immigration streams to prioritize that transition of workers already here and focus on the labour and be responsive to the labour market needs. But for that, we need provinces to move forward and come forward with their data and tell us their needs. The federal government has an understanding of what those needs are. It is a sophisticated one, but it isn't the only voice in this, and provinces have a responsibility to come to us and tell us what those needs are. Les Canadiens et Canadiennes, évidemment, sont fiers de cette
Obviously, Canadians are proud of their reputation as leaders in resettlement of refugees. Our targets on refugee resettlement have been reduced because of global reductions that are affecting us today. But our commitment to some of the most vulnerable in the world still remains. It's important to reunite families, including spouses, children, parents, and grandparents. As such, we will continue to take 40% of family immigration reduction targets in 2025. We have a clear and precise federal responsibility to ensure that our Francophone communities outside of Quebec can receive the number of immigrants that they need in order to allow the community to continue to expand and retain its vitality. We are seeking to raise this target by 50% up to 6% and then up to 10% in 2027, which is significant because that's 3 times more than what we were doing a few years ago.
A little earlier, for the first time, the immigration levels plan includes targets for temporary residents, such as international students, temporary foreign workers, the postgraduate work permits that comprise that. In the temporary resident space, over 50% of that is occupied by international students and postgraduate work permits. So the measures that we instituted a little less than a year ago are ones that are important to highlight the success of. We have seen, thanks to those measures, a reduction of about 43% in the number of study permits, new study permits accorded. And that's working. Studies are showing quite consistently that that is contributing to the lowering of the rent, notably in Vancouver, Surrey, as well as Toronto, close to 8 to 10%. And this is something which is a clear proof point, and in fact encourages us to take the measures that we are taking today with respect to permanent residency. The caps that we put in place are not measures that we took lightly, nor are the measures taken today ones that we're taking lightly without reflection. We are an open country, but not everyone can come to this country. Permanent residency is something that we hold dear. It has a value, as does Canadian citizenship. We've been a very generous country and will continue to do so. The numbers that we announced today roughly take us to back to a very ambitious plan that was put forward in about 2020. It reflects the fact that we have and we will continue to listen to Canadians. That's something that's important because the people standing behind me today are people that have been speaking to their constituents, have been speaking to economists, have been speaking to universities and institutions, and listening to their own families. And they've said consistently that while we are still and continue to be an open country, that volume that we have put forward is something that is of concern. And indeed, the latest Environics poll says as much. There are limits to governing by poll, and this is something that took some reflection over the last year. When I spoke to economists, they said clearly that their range of permanent residency needed to be reduced, but there wasn't unanimity as to what it was. It was about 350 to 450,000 for next year. This is somewhere in the middle, and I think it respects a responsible plan to grow immigration, while the net effect is a pause on the population growth. It is something that shows that we're listening to Canadian, shows that we have a controlled immigration plan that we can be proud of. One final point that I think is really important for the number crunchers out there, and I know there are indeed a few, the temporary measures that we have taken, including the ones that Minister Boissonnault has announced, are expected to result in a reduction of Canada's temporary resident population of 445,000 in 2025, an additional 445,000 in 2026, and perhaps a modest increase of 17 in 2027. Those are the numbers that we are factoring in as we look at the impact on the need to build housing units, but also the ones we look at when we look at the overall mix and the plan to reduce the temporary resident population from 7 to 5%. One final note on regularization, and I know this was an important mandate of our government. It has become quite clear over the last year that there is no consensus on a mass regularization program, despite the fact that people in Canada continue to be Canadian, except for everything but in name. When looking at this regularization program, we looked at the impact that this could have on deploying it in a short period of time and making sure that it is a success that makes sense and is fair for everyone. It doesn't mean we've left these people behind. We are prepared to institute a smaller program in number to make sure that we are targeting important aspects of the economy, whether it's construction or healthcare, to regularize some folks that, again, should be Canadian by right and aren't today. Those are measures that will continue, but in a much smaller amount than perhaps the mandate letter that I carry suggested. And that is something that we will continue to work on and continue to work with Canadians and the implicated organizations. We have a lot of challenges in this area. The consensus is one that was hard fought. It's something that we have to continue fighting for, and we will continue fighting for it. But today, with this plan, we're proposing a managed migration plan that puts control in the federal government over the numbers of people coming to this country, and will contribute to a positive future for all Canadians, and one where we can serve both immigrants and Canadians better.
Okay, so that was the announcement the Premier and then the Minister gave. There has been some reduction in the coming year, but it seems promising from 2027. And then this reduction will not affect you much if you have everything that you are required. So if you are coming as a student, make sure you watch the previous videos that you need to get the right school. You need to get the right school. I advise that you now look at universities instead of colleges. Look at university, do university programs instead of colleges. And then if you're in Canada already as a student or a worker, there's most of the permanent residents, I think about 40% are going to be given to those already here. If you have your qualifications already, like you have your master's already, you have your bachelor's already, then because for the temporary resident, they are going to look at workers. Like they want people who will be here to be working for them because they've realized a lot of students and then visitors come in with less experience, especially visitors, and then they try to transition into permanent residency. One thing he said that I take it key for any plan that you are planning is he said we are not listening to Canadians. If you have been following Canadian immigration, you've seen that there's a lot of pressure on the government of the state. So in that way, he said we are not listening to Canadians. And what most of these Canadians are saying is we don't need more immigrants because I've said this before, a lot of immigrants coming to the country is also putting them away because initially high school students could do some menial jobs, but now because of a lot of immigrants with low skills are here, they are doing those jobs. And most Canadians are complaining. They are listening to them. So come is possible, the doors are still open, but make sure you have the right requirements to come. So thank you. This will be the end of today's video. I'm sorry for the initial lagging, and then even in the video it was a bit lagging. I didn't want to just explain, but I wanted you to get the news as it is said from the horse's own mouth. So thank you. Follow Life App, our YouTube channel, subscribe to it, share for others who need. There are so many videos that helps you to travel outside the home country. We show you the right path, or we show you the opportunities available. If you don't know, the US diversity visa program is ongoing. I think about a week or so it is going to close, so you can apply to it. Yeah, said cast your dice everywhere. You don't know which one is going to win, so apply to school, apply to US, apply to Europe, apply to Canada, like apply everywhere possible, and then hopefully one day it's going to work. In this journey, it is perseverance and then persistence. You don't have to just give up because it takes some people 10 years, 20 years for them to realize this. Some people are lucky, it's going to take them just 1 month. Some can take them just even 2 weeks. Some people too. But at the end, if that is your aim, and then you perceive, you're going to make it. So thank you. See you next time. If you have any question, do not hesitate to hit us. we will try our best to. See you. Bye.